Hello there. My name is Danny, and this is a new YouTube series about maps. I'm a big fan of maps. In my free time, I love to go map different places around the world in the United States. I'm currently a student at the University of Minnesota, and that is what I do instead of doing my homework 90% of the time. You could probably guess how my grades are doing. What I want to do today is something that I really love to do, and that's go back to places that I've been in real life with maps. The way I do this is I go into the satellite view and turn all the labels off and try my very best to find places from my memory that I haven't specifically looked up before and generally don't know the name of. So the only way I would be able to find it is by using the satellite map itself to go find it. So today what I want to do is get out of Minneapolis because I've been here long enough, and I want to explore somewhere that I'm interested in, Florida. Last summer I was on a speech and debate trip for the National Speech and Debate Tournament. Very cool, what can I say? National Speech and Debate Tournament. Somewhere in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area is where I had this tournament. So I want to be able to find where I stayed, the hotel I stayed at, and also the high school that I stayed at. So there's a couple different ways I'm going to look for this. Ready or not, here we go. Okay, so first of all, this is Florida. We know that's Florida. Florida, we know, or I know, has essentially approximately three major metropolitan areas. Jacksonville, which is actually the largest city in Florida. A lot of people would guess it's Miami, but the single city of Jacksonville is the largest. Jacksonville's in the north. The Orlando-Tampa area, which is not really a metro area. They're 2 hours apart, or an hour and a half maybe, but they're close enough that that's what I'm going to call them. It's probably a misnomer. And then the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood area. Now, I know that Miami is the largest city in South Florida. And just by looking at this map and understanding urban areas, this is clearly the largest urban area in the south of Florida. Maybe most likely in all of Florida, just by looking at the gray on this beach here. It really looks like it has to be Miami. Okay, so I know that this is Miami, Fort Lauderdale. I also know that this right here is Miami. Why? Because of the density. Miami is an older city, and it's a lot denser than a lot of its Floridian counterparts. It's very different from the rest of Florida. And it also looks different on a map. The neighborhoods are significantly denser. And you can really just see that by zooming in. This looks more like an American city than a lot of these suburban areas in Florida. So this is Miami. You can also tell this by just looking at the skyline. Now, I happen to be a big fan of skylines, so I can tell you by looking at this that this is the Miami skyline, which is a very cool thing to do, by the way, like enjoy skylines. Like, Mom, when you tell me that I'm weird, I just get really upset, just so you know, okay? But yeah, if I asked a random person, hey, we're in Florida right now, what city do you think this image is of? I'd probably guess 9 times out of 10 they'd say Miami, because the sheer size of this downtown, the way that this city looks. It's clearly a beach resort place with a lot of hip, interesting qualities. Look at how many buildings there are. People want to be here. It's got to be Miami. Great. So now we know this is Miami. I also know for a fact that Fort Lauderdale is north of Miami. And interestingly, I know that Fort Lauderdale has a large airport. When we flew in to Fort Lauderdale, we didn't go into the Miami airport, we went to the Fort Lauderdale airport. And I remember flying in and being like, wow, this is like a really big airport. But it wasn't the Miami one. This airport is in Miami. So we know there has to be a really large major airport that's north of here. So I'm going to look for that right now. There's an airport. So this has to be the Fort Lauderdale airport. I also recall Fort Lauderdale's downtown being north of the Fort Lauderdale Airport. So let's look around here. That looks like a downtown. Yep, that's a downtown. This is downtown Fort Lauderdale. Wonderful. So we're in Fort Lauderdale, the great city of. Here's Fort Lauderdale, and now it's going to get a little more anecdotal because these are things that I just remember in general, but because I don't know the names of places and we're much more specific at this point, you're just going to have to trust me that I have no idea where I'm going right now, and I'm going to say a lot of bullshit, but it's going to be great. Okay, so here's the Fort Lauderdale Airport. Here's downtown. What I remember, every single day, we would wake up bright and early at 6 a.m., change into our suits for this great speech tournament, go south down a major road, get on a highway, go west, interchange with another highway, and then go south again, and then go west on another major road. I just listed a bunch of directions and whatnot at you. You don't have to remember them. You don't have to remember anything for that matter. But basically, that's my general scope of things. So I know that, firstly, given that the place we stayed was west of the airport, the high school was really close to the swamp. This is a big old swamp, as can be seen. It's the Everglades something. It's not the Everglades National Park. I know for a fact that's here because that's really close to the ocean or the Gulf. And yeah, like one famous thing about the Everglades is that there are a lot of species that there's a specific tree species that lives in salt water and fresh water. It's a very unique environment. So this here is a very unique swampy / salty area, Everglades. But I recall that this is also the Everglades. I guess it's the Everglades State Park. It's a slightly different area. Still swamp though. So we know that our high school is close to here. And I know, where did we go? Oh, I lost it. There we go. Okay. I know for a fact that I drove west on this highway to get to from the airport to get to my hotel. I recall it took around 10 to 15 minutes to get from the airport. I also know it took 5 to 10 minutes to get from the, once you're on the highway to get from there, from my hotel to this interchange. So I know that it's about equidistant, probably closer to this interchange here. That's around where our hotel is. So it's got to be somewhere in this area. Now, here's another thing I remember. The hotel is right next to this really large mall. In Florida, it's kind of easy to tell what's a residential complex and what's a mall or what's a business area just by the way that things are structured. Let's zoom in here, for example. This is a classic residential area in suburban Florida. Like the urban planning gets rid of the swampy nature, creates these like beautiful geometric shapes of water, very specific, unique street layouts with fairly repetitive houses, but it's beautiful. It's also pretty easy to see from above. Now, I know we're around here, and I know we're looking for a mall. There's a lot of gray in this area, so it's got to be one of these things. Oh, there. Yep, this is it. This is the mall. Look at that beauty. Look at all those parking spots. Wow. Wow. Yeah, parking in Florida is fairly easy to come by. So I know it was close, and here it is. This is the hotel I stayed at. Wonderful. I spent a lot of time in this pool and a lot of time playing basketball on this court, even when my speech coach was like, you should be practicing. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I didn't do very well at the tournament, needless to say. Okay, so now that we found the hotel, I'll go through how I got to the high school. Every day, we would drive south along this road, get to the highway, go west along the highway, until we reached, lo and behold, this massive, beautiful intersection. Then once we got there, we would go south. South for, I think it was 5 to 10 minutes, and then we would go west along a major road. So 5 to 10 minutes should be around here-ish. Yeah. Now that we're here, here's another thing I remember. The road was straight. This is not straight. This is not straight. This is not straight. This is straight. This is straight. This is straight. This is too far. So we have about 3 roads that look like contenders. This one, and this one. I knew it was really close to the swamp, so we're kind of in this region at this point, very close to the roads. And at this point, I don't recall enough for it to be like pretty obvious to me. All I can say is it can't be this road. That's industrial. It can't be this road because I don't see a high school or anything large enough to be a high school along here. It might be this road. I recall that there was a lot of water right next to it, which is a stupid thing to say considering how much water there is all over South Florida. But it must have been a lot of water for me to specifically remember how much water there was. So, not much water right along the road. In fact, no water. Don't think it's that. There's water along the road, but some areas there's not. It might be here. It really might be. Ooh, that's a high school, isn't it? Okay, let's just check this road. Not much water. Again. Is there a high school over here? No high school over here. Ooh, that's a lot of water. That is a lot of water. And that's a high school. Is it it? Yes, it is! Ladies and gentlemen, we have found the high school. This is where I went to compete every single day. Fantastic high school, great open layout. You would walk from building to building to go to your events, which is fucking phenomenal in buggy Florida during the month of June. You'd be outside in a suit, 85 degrees, humid, and trying your best to not die of heat stroke. There were also these weird, not air-conditioned like trailers that some people would compete in. It was a great time. It was just like so really phenomenal. No, but actually, I do love humid weather. I'm from the Chicago area, and it gets really humid in the summer, and that's just my absolute favorite. People think I'm fucking crazy for it, but you know what? It's fine. I also sleep in an 85-degree room in the winter, so I'm a little crazy. Cypress Bay High School, I recall that now that we're here. Yeah, and that's it. Cypress Bay High School is where I competed, and whatever this hotel is where I stayed. Residence Inn by Marriott. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Florida by Danny. One final note on Florida in general. I'm a really big fan of large cities. Some of my favorite cities in the United States are San Francisco, Chicago, New York. Dense urban centers with a lot of history and a lot of interesting architecture. But Florida is also a love of mine, which is odd because I'm usually not a fan of the suburban. Being from suburbia, I've found it to be boring most of my life, which is a stereotypical view, but it has a lot of truth to it. But something about Florida is so incredible. The unique bird's eye views, just the way urban planners have really made it into what looks like a paradise on earth. It just feels like it's living in a resort. Sure, you need a car to get around. Sure, it's hard to walk from place to place. Sure, if I lived in Florida, maybe I'd start to hate it. Who knows? But just by my week-long experience there, in the summer, albeit, I loved it. And that is all I have to say. Thank you, Florida, and thank you for listening.